Hello and welcome to today's webcast with Episurf. Today we have the CEO Pål Ryfors and the new head of sales Stephen Caswell with us. If you have any questions for Paul and Stephen, you can ask them in the form that is located to the right. And with that said, I'll give you guys the stage. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Martin, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for listening to our Q4 2021 presentation. I'm here together with our new head of sales, Steve Caswell. Nice having you on board, Steve. So this is the agenda today, and I will get right into it. So we have used this slide a couple of times now during these presentations, and hopefully we can skip it quite soon, but it is still a reality with COVID for us and for the society as a whole. But if I'm about to focus on anything in particular, we are definitely seeing an end to the pandemic, of course. However, the first bullet here brings up the hospital visits. So when our sales reps or our distributors are visiting hospital, it's often subject to PCR testing, strict meeting protocols, and various forms that has to be filled in before such a visit. And all of that complicates the natural flow of business between an orthopedic company and the clinic. So it creates problems for us, but this is phasing out, but it's still not it's still not as before. So just a word of caution regarding Q1, but definitely we are pleased to see an end to this as well, and then we can go back to normal business sometime here during the spring. If we look at the results for 2021, if there's anything I want to highlight is that we are definitely growing despite the pandemic. So we posted a 30% top line growth over the year, and I think that's quite an achievement given the circumstances. We are obviously coming from low levels, but we are at the early days of our commercialization journey, and 2022 is expected to be an interesting year for us. We ended the year with a cash balance of 238 million, so we are better funded than ever, and that's of course thanks to the directed issue we conducted at the beginning of the fourth quarter. On key events, I really would like to highlight the submission of the 510(k) application. This was the first in Episurf's history, and we now have our first product to the US market underway, and hopefully we can launch this sometime mid-2022. So it is indeed exciting times, and we are coming out of the pandemic in a much better shape than how we entered the pandemic. So that's a positive, I believe. So we looked at this graph last time we met, and we've added another quarter now. So you can see that the gray bars and the blue bars, the orthopedic segment and the knee segment for the biggest orthopedic companies, have had tough quarters during the pandemic. Episurf has posted 2 negative quarters if you look at the gross order intake growth. But other than that, we've actually posted quite nice growth rates despite the pandemic over these two years. And if we just take a simple average over this period of time, we've actually been growing by 17% every quarter. And if you compare that to the orthopedic industry as a whole, or the knee segment, which has been much closer to zero. So, of course, we would like the absolute numbers to reach different levels now in the months and years to come. But I think we managed the pandemic in a fairly good way, actually. So we are operating with an ambitious global agenda, and I mentioned several times that we sold implants in 15 countries during 2021. So the regulatory work is really paying off. And if you look at what we were focusing on in Q4, I just want to highlight a few important achievements. So, and the first one is India, where we now had our first surgeon meetings. These meetings have been digital, but they are conducted on the basis of that we are now soon able to travel to India and meet our prospective customers there. India is a very interesting market for us, and I'm really looking forward to be able to take the next steps now during 2022. And in the report, we're saying that we expect our first surgeries in India during Q3 2022. The Middle East region, a little bit further down on the slide, is a very interesting region, and under Steve's leadership, we're now taking a new look at this region. We've been doing some work for several years now, with regulatory filings, etc. And we are now in a position to hopefully scale up commercial activities in the region. And this also applies to New Zealand and Australia, a region which it's been a bit silent about this region for us. But now in the last weeks, we've really restarted the focus on this region, again, under Steve's leadership, and this is interesting. Final comment is on the UK. We've talked about this many times before, but in UK, it's a critical component to receive clinical acceptance and reimbursement in the bigger UK market, which is called inclusion in the NICE guidelines. And the NICE guidelines, that's subject to something called the IPAC hearing, and we participated in this hearing in January. So this process, we said it was going to start properly at the beginning of this year, and it has, and we can confirm that now, and we participated in the meeting, and we were very pleased with the outcome. So hopefully we have a positive outcome in this process during the year, no later than Q3 2022 expected. So all in all, we doubled the number of countries we have business in during the pandemic, and our revenues today are essentially generated in Germany. So we now can also start take some proper steps in several other countries, in addition to continue to grow in Germany. I think things can look quite positive for us in the next years. And with that, I would like to hand over to Steve, who will guide you from here.
Thanks, Paul. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good, thank you. So hello, everyone. Just a brief moment to introduce myself. My name is Steve Caswell. I started my career as a chartered physiotherapist, spending 11 years treating patients very similar to the types of patients that we're treating now here at Episurf. Then I spent 7 years in the Stryker joint replacement division in various roles, sales management, Mako robotics marketing. For those of you who don't know Mako, it is the leading orthopedic robot on the market right now, and also latterly as Director of Strategic Capabilities. Next slide, Paul. So as I said, as a physiotherapist, treating these high-functioning patients was an absolute challenge, and they really do exist. They are a problem patient, these patients that sit in the gap. They do have a strong desire to stay active. And for that reason, I do believe there is a strong market potential for this personalized resurfacing segment that we're creating here in this pre-uni space. Patients that are waiting for a uni, waiting for arthroplasty, that's not acceptable for them to be just in the community waiting with reduced activity. So for that reason, there is a huge potential for the patient-specific point of care model that we are already operational with. And without a strong clinical and IP portfolio base, we wouldn't be able to go on and accelerate the growth like we expect to over the coming months. So there's, needless to say, it really is quite a large problem that Episurf have decided to take on here, the gap patient. And considering where we're at, we're at a very strong point with the clinical data that we have, the clinical portfolio that we have. Even larger companies would be very proud of that data that we have. A strong regulatory base globally is putting us in a very strong position to move on to accelerate our commercial strategy. And I'd just like to note that our KOL support globally is very strong. We have some really strong KOL names that are supporting our growth. So now we move on to accelerate our commercial strategy and have a true global expansion program. And this is accompanied by a strong reimbursement program that Michael and the team are supporting us with. Next slide, Paul. I'd love to call this slide out. There aren't many orthopedic companies that can boast growth throughout the pandemic. The Episurf should be very proud to be able to post growth throughout the pandemic, and that's something to take note of. So let's just focus in now on Europe. Of course, we'll continue to have a very strong focus on Europe. We have a mixed strategy in Europe with both direct and indirect channels. Our direct markets, we have a strong sales team, very experienced sales team that are very close to our customers, and that's going to be very important moving forward. I've been really pleased to see the momentum and the pipeline that our direct sales team have. And I've no doubt that as we come out of the pandemic, the recovery will be strong. I'm very comfortable with the sales team that we have. Our indirect channels, we're just entering really strong relationships with large orthopedic distribution specialists. For example, France, Interbones, large orthopedic specialist organization. 4 Medicals in Italy have been a partner of ours for quite some time now and already starting to see a a steady stream of cases. And if we look at Spain and Portugal, again, MedComtech, very strong, wide-reaching orthopedic specialist distributor. So really excited to partner with these companies, but also we are only just starting out. We are only just onboarding these companies. So we can expect to see some growth from those over the coming months and years. And of course, outside of Europe, we have markets that we're particularly focused on. Australia and New Zealand has been an absolute focus of mine over the last few weeks. And I think we're in a good position to move forward with the strategy in the coming weeks. Middle East, we're reviewing our strategy there, reviewing our partners. And again, we know that this will be a strong market for us and it will continue to have our focus, and we will resource this appropriately moving forward in the coming months. And it's been pleasing to see inquiries coming in from South America, certainly Argentina, inquiries coming in from that market. And again, we will pursue this market. We're quite excited about the potential of a highly populated, established market for us to enter. Next slide, please, Paul. I think it's worth taking a look at this slide and just reminding ourselves why we are seeing such global interest in this personalized resurfacing category. It really is based on these three pillars that Episurf have based their business on. Indication is so important in these patients to make sure that we're using these implants in the appropriate patients. The detail that we go into on our MRI 3D planning in partnership with our surgeons to make sure that these implants are being used for the correct indication is so important as a base. Moving on to the implant, patient-specific implants are essential for success in this category, and the HA coating IP that we have is really essential to make sure that the cartilage is growing into the implant, which is essential for good survivorship. Moving forward, there's no point in having this strong base and patient-specific implantation if the instruments you use aren't up to the precision that we require. So we 3D print instrumentation for every single patient, and that ensures that we have great precision of placing the implant, which again is important for survivorship. So it really is a patient-specific evolution here, and I believe the orthopedic community are taking note of this as a valid treatment option. Of course, orthopedic surgeons and patients expect longevity of implants, and we're very proud with our survivorship right out to 7 years. Episealer here being the blue line. In comparison to other treatments, we can look at UKA survivorship, other small implant survivorship, and also microfracture survivorship. We're very, very comfortable with our survivorship data. And of course, not only survivorship, survivorship is kind of expected as a base for any implant these days, but sustained benefit to patients is obviously essential. And we have very strong multi-center studies that are out there showing that we have sustained benefits for patients. So just one last slide to really summarize our focus moving forward. Our sales team and indirect channels are going to be focused on developing aggressive growth in our knee portfolio. We'll continue to take a very responsible approach at introducing the ankle talus product to the market and gathering further clinical data. And then we are committed to casting a wide net globally to make sure we expand our customer base significantly, with an overarching aim to be the market leader for focal cartilage repair. I'll pass back to Paul just to close up on a couple of additional slides.
Thank you very much, Stephen. So what you just heard is the basis for item number 1 on the strategy slide here. So we are now increasing the commercial focus in several countries in Europe, Middle East, and Asia. And this is something we're really looking forward to. Today, we have not talked a lot about the EPIC knee study in the US, but what I will say is that we are obviously expecting significantly more favorable conditions in 2022 than what prevailed in 2020 and 2021. And we've just met with all the investigators in the trial. They are on board. They are enthusiastic about driving this trial forward. We do see some increased activities, and I hope that we have our first patients in the UK in this trial recruited any day soon. So it's just hard work, and we will succeed with this, but the last 2 years with the EPIC knee trial have been very tough, of course. The Episealer Talus, we press released yesterday the progression of the Episealer Talus trial in Italy, where they now have reached over 50% patient recruitment, and the European study has about 25% patient recruitment. So those studies are really going forward, and we are also commercializing the Episealer Talus. And as you also saw yesterday, we're now just conducting the first case in Norway with the Episurf. So this is ongoing. The Episurf patellofemoral system, we did file that at the end of or actually in the first days of 2022. And we are now under review by the FDA, and we stick to our timetable of launching this sometime mid-2022. And as you know, we discussed at the time of the Q3 report, we have announced our intention of developing an implant system for the greater toe, the Episurf NTP system. And the timetable for this is about a year later than for the Episurf patellofemoral system. So we're targeting a launch late 2022 or first half of 2023. Again, targeting the US market, and you can expect that we are coming back to you with a more confirmed and narrowed down timetable. So it's a broad strategy, and to execute on that, we now have a very strong shareholder register. We like to show this slide. We are making certain clarifications compared to what you can see in Euroclear and holdings list, etc. So this is our best view of the shareholder list as of December 31st. And as you can see, Ilya Batyan with Healthronner AB is the largest shareholder since the directed issue at the beginning of Q4. With that, we will open up for some questions, and I will also take the opportunity to thank you all for the support during 2021. It was in many cases, in many aspects, a tough year, but also a very interesting year, and I believe we took some major steps. And rest assured, the management team and the company is highly enthusiastic and will work very hard to create shareholder value in 2022. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pål and Steven. Now it's time for the Q&A, and we'll jump off the first question. Steven, what's your most important priorities for the coming months?
Thanks, Martin. Our number one priority is absolutely driving sales execution, certainly with the direct team, really making sure our sales pipeline is converted to revenue. And then close second to that is reconnecting with all of our indirect partners to make sure that we have a very clear strategy and that they are getting the support we need. And then I'd probably say my third priority after that would be obviously new market entry.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll take the next question. Can you give any updates on how many patients have been recruited in the EPIC knee study so far? And are there any risk for a delayed recruitment and subsequent FDA filing?
I can answer that. So we still only have the 2 patients operated on that we reported previously. We have several more patients enrolled, which means that they have come quite far into trial, but there are some additional steps for us to take before they are finally recruited. We hope to be able to recruit these patients now in the next 12 to 18 months, and that would lead to a PMA process somewhere 2024, 2025. And we are still sticking to that timetable, so no changes to that. I should make it clear that the Episurf patellofemoral system and the 510(k) filing is totally separated from the PMA process with the EPIC knee studies. It's 2 completely different set of activities, and the other doesn't affect the other, so to say. So we should keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you. We'll take the next question. How do you think pricing in India will differ from pricing in the EU?
So our preliminary review is that there is a good pricing power in the Indian market, and for the segment in the private sector there, which we are targeting, we expect to be able to charge similar prices as in Europe.
Perfect, thank you. When do you expect to publish the health economic study?
Oh yes, that has been resubmitted. We've communicated that. It was a really thorough work that was conducted during in the planning phase of the resubmission. And the reality is that when a study is submitted for publication, it is some kind of black box. It's very little communication between the reviewer and the author. And I believe it's fair to say that there's no communication until there's a reaction or acceptance, or they ask for some clarifications in a formal correspondence. So with that said, we haven't heard anything, but we have reason to believe that this is being in process now, and we wouldn't be surprised if it was accepted very shortly. However, we don't have any more information than what we know, and what we know is that we resubmitted a very good manuscript a few weeks ago, and we are keeping our fingers crossed that it's being accepted shortly. That's unfortunately the best, potentially vague, though, answer I can give.
Okay, thank you. We'll take the next question. Can you elaborate on the IPAC hearing and how long it could take to possibly be included to the NICE guidelines?
So I'll ask Steve to put some color on this question, but if you look at the timetable is fairly fixed, and this is a process that is expected to last until the third quarter of 2022. So within that period of time, it should.
Paul. So yeah, we're expecting consultation to open on March the 18th, and these particular guidelines are scheduled to be published in around August time. So we're expecting to enter consultation very soon.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you. We'll take the next question. Stephen, with your background from Stryker and specifically Mako Robotics, can you elaborate on the trends you see in orthopedics, and how may Episurf fit into these?
Okay, thanks, Martin. That's a very good question. I think in orthopedics at present, we're seeing particular trends in enhanced planning, particularly 3D planning of MRI or CT, and clearly this links in with AI. So with our MRI planning tool, we're very well placed to capitalize on that. Then the second bucket of change really is in the increased precision, patient-specific technology absolutely falling into this, and clearly robotics falls into that too. We are very comfortable with our instrumentation and precision that it provides on a patient-specific basis. And then I think generally there's an acceptance that more can be done, certainly for this group of patients. So I think we'll see treatment algorithms widen with the enhanced technologies that are available to the orthopedic segment at present.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. I have another question for you here coming. What's important for creating a successful sales force, whether it is direct reps or indirect channels in orthopedics?
Absolutely, for me, making sure that the sales team and our indirect partners are really working on a basis of integrity and trust, absolutely as a starting point. I believe we have that in our sales team and also with our indirect partners, because when you're creating a new segment, customers really need to trust that the organization has the patient's best interest at heart. But once you do have that base, clearly you need a highly driven sales team and competent indirect partners, which again, I know we have, and our partners also have a very broad reach as well. But most importantly, to make sure, and this is what we've been working on over the last few weeks, making sure that we're very clear on a strategy and that we can execute on that strategy.
Thank you very much, Stephen. We'll have a next question. What's Episurf's priorities for the year?
So I'll take that one, and I will say that the Epic Knee study is a key priority for us. So if I'm moving away from the commercialization for a second, this is an extremely important project, and we just have to push that forward during the year. Other than that, the launch of the Episealer patellofemoral system in the US market is a key priority. We are in the planning phase now for such a launch. Of course, we have to focus on the FDA process for the coming weeks and months. But there is a commercial launch following that, and we have to plan for that. So that's obviously very important. And the third thing I would mention is everything that Steve is talking about. We are in a position to drive commercial growth now in several markets. We have the data, we have the organization, and we have the network within the orthopedic industry and among potential customers to do just that. So I'm not saying we'll take over the world tomorrow, but you will definitely see great progress during the year, and that's the third priority I would highlight.
Thank you, Paul, and we'll take the next question. Are you planning for a US launch of the Episurf patellofemoral system?
Yes, certainly, and hopefully then sometime mid 2022. And the US market is a market that consists of, or let me say, all companies. They have a mix of direct reps and independent distributor networks that are very powerful in the US. So that's something we are looking into right now, and there are also larger partnership opportunities, meaning that we could partner with a larger orthopedic company that has its own sales force of several hundreds or even thousand. So we're looking into all of these alternatives at the moment, and I'm confident that we will come up with a good solution under the leadership of Patrick Janik in the US and communicate more about this, hopefully already during the spring.
Thank you, Paul. We'll move along to the next question. What are you least happy with of the year 2021?
Unfortunately, I have to say the EPIC knee trial, because that's it's just been a very tough situation, and with essentially an effective close down of research activities for 2 years in several of the sites in the trial. So that has been a disappointment. But I would also like to mention that as a disappointment, just to emphasize again how important it is that we're now moving ahead in that trial. So that would be my answer.
Okay, well then with the last question, what are you the most happy with of the year 2021?
I think I genuinely believe, and I think I speak for the entire organization when I say that we are coming out of the pandemic as a significantly stronger company than what we looked like when we entered the pandemic. And this relates to all aspects of our business. We have a totally different set of clinical data. It's an impressive scientific base we have. We have several products in the pipeline for the US market, which is extremely interesting. And we have a much stronger organization, as you see on this call with Steve, for example. So there are so many pieces in place, and I believe during 2021 we managed to put those pieces in place together with adding a strong funding base for us. So it's just a general answer where I say that we're a much stronger company today than what we've been before, and that is what generates the excitement that you'll hear from us today.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul and Stephen, for that presentation and the answers for our questions. And a big thank you to all of you that have followed today's webcast with Episurf. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.